Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Trek, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise. Today I'm looking at The Conscience of the King from the original series' first season, or as I like to call it, that time there was drama aboard the Enterprise. This episode was requested by Seth Mackey, so thank you for the suggestion, and let's get going. We begin the episode with a dagger and a murder, which turns out to be Macbeth. But this eye patch man angrily tells Kirk the actor is Kodos the Executioner. And into the credits we go. The Enterprise is en route to check out a magical foodstuff that could wipe out famine, but then it turns out it was a lie to trap Kodos, who yes, did lend his name to one of the aliens in The Simpsons. Eye Patch Tom says that Kodos was responsible for the death of 4,000 people, even though Kirk insists he's dead, and then Tom turns dramatically to reveal what we already saw in the opening scene. Tom says he's invited the acting troupe over for drinks, but Kirk takes off uninterested. However, he does do some research on actor Anton, who doesn't seem to have an identity or a history. Curious, Kirk decides to go to the cocktail party where he spots this blonde Lucy Lawless lookalike and chats her up for a bit. She's Anton's daughter, but her father doesn't do parties, and hang on a second. The research Kirk did says this woman is 19 and he is all over her, even though he's 32, and seriously, he'll flirt with absolutely anybody, won't he?
Meet you outside.
Her and her weird peekaboo headscarf thing are so into Kirk and calls him a young man, which is an odd thing for a 19-year-old to say, and they're about to kiss, but some body gets in the way. It's Eye Patch Tom, who's dead Jim, and his wife doesn't get it, so Kirk calls another captain, voiced by John Astin, aka Gomez from the original Addams Family, and asks him not to collect the actors like he's supposed to. Instead, the Enterprise will take care of them. Lenore and her fashion choices beam aboard and go to see Kirk to ask for a ride, which Kirk agrees to in exchange for a free performance, so they get underway. Kirk asks the computer for a list of people who survived Kodos' massacre, which included Eye Patch Tom, Kirk himself, and Riley, who you may remember from his drunken antics in The Naked Time. So Kirk immediately demotes his ass and sticks him in engineering without explanation. Spock bitches to McCoy about Kirk's actions, but he's too busy drinking to care. Holy crap, is this where JLo got her inspiration for a green dress? Anyway, they flirt up a storm in the hall and make out, of course, while Spock digs around in the files and reports his finding to McCoy, explaining that when a colony of 8,000 people's food supply was almost wiped out, Kodos seized power and went full on Thanos, killing half the population. As there was no positive ID on Kodos' body, and Anton showed up out of nowhere at the same time, Spock comes to the same conclusion as Eye Patch Tom. And what's more, out of 9 surviving eyewitnesses, only Riley and Kirk are still alive. Each of the others' deaths were around the same time and place that the troupe were putting on a play. Right, I'm calling it here that Lenore's behind it all. I just don't trust her. Riley is bored in engineering. What are those weird waxy looking cubes? Anyway, he calls Uhura to play him a song and she obliges. And damn girl!
Somewhere beyond the stars.
Everyone enjoys the performance, but someone spikes Riley's drink, which he then drinks, and Uhura finishes the song without moving her lips. Riley calls for help and is dragged to sickbay, where it's confirmed that he was poisoned. So McCoy and Spock go to Kirk, who yell at them for sticking their noses in, and doesn't seem to care that he could be offed next. Spock is sure that Anton and Kodos are one and the same, but Kirk isn't convinced. But soon they discover a booby-trapped phaser is in the room, and while Spock evacuates the deck, Kirk tracks it down and chucks it down the garbage chute. Kirk goes to see Anton and straight up asks him if he's Kodos, but he's very vague.
What were you 20 years ago?
Younger, Captain. Much younger.
Kirk makes Anton take a voice test, and he barely looks down at the Kodos speech he was given, and says he understands why Kodos did what he did. And after Kirk presses him, he says he's tired, and Lenore comes out to tell Kirk off for using her to get to her father. Kirk argues that if Anton is Kodos, then he's been pretty nice to him, all things considered. But if he isn't, no harm, no foul. Dude, if he's not, then you've harassed an innocent old man. McCoy loudly records a log near Riley, dramatic zoom, and he disappears, sending security scrambling as the troupe perform Hamlet, and Kirk intercepts him stage side and tries to talk him around. But Riley insists that Anton is definitely Kodos, and he should pay for his crimes. Kirk takes the phaser off him and orders him back to sickbay, while Lenore admits to Anton that she was the one who killed all the witnesses.
But you're safe now, Father. I've saved you.
Kirk overhears everything, Anton admits that he is Kodos, and Lenore justifies what she did.
I would have killed a world to save him!
She grabs a phaser and her and her crazy eyes accidentally shoots Anton dead before quoting Hamlet at him. Sure lady, that'll help. Okie dokie, this is such a good episode, I really enjoyed it. I have a love-hate relationship with the over-the-top campy tone of this show, but I love episodes like this one that bucks that trend. I'm going to start a little differently by commenting on the music, which played a big part throughout. And while it can be a little silly or over-dramatic sometimes, in this episode it marries perfectly with the story's narrative and themes. And as a bonus, we get a beautiful performance by Nichelle Nichols, which fits seamlessly into the episode, and it was a real treat. The story itself has notes of Deep Space Nine's Duet and Voyager's Nothing Human, or more accurately, they have notes of this, and as I mentioned before, it's very Thanos, as Kodos wiped out half the population in order to save the other half. And weirdly, I see the logic, sacrificing half the people, otherwise everyone will die. But still, you can't play God and decide whose lives are more valuable. What he did was unforgivable, but at the same time, he obviously felt some guilt for what he did, as he tried to move on, started a family, and chose to become an actor of all things, which is very telling. I feel like Kirk is at his best when he's matching wits with someone, and he comes across either very stubborn or very level-headed, because even though the evidence seems to point that way, Kirk wants to be absolutely sure that Anton is Kodos before he acts. Because if he's wrong, he would be just like him, deciding someone's fate based on his own personal feelings. Riley is a great component in this episode, and it's a damn shame that he only appears in 2 episodes, because he's brought a lot to the screen time he's had. And despite learning that the guy on board was responsible for the death of his whole family, he shows compassion and defers to the captain's orders, rather than kill Anton like I thought he was going to. And I wish we got more of him throughout the show's run. I also appreciate that Uhura sang him a song even after he yelled at her in The Naked Time. If he'd continued to feature, then maybe their friendship could have been a running thing. Now on to the twist, and that's where I need you lovely people's opinion. For those of you who watched this when it first aired, were you surprised that Lenore was the one behind the murders, or did you see it coming a mile away? I personally thought it was super obvious. Maybe perhaps with more knowledge of the franchise, I'm more in tune with the types of tropes they use, or maybe because she was playing Lady Macbeth, who was famous for being a murderous nutty lady. But I would love to know how you called it initially. I'm glad Lenore was the killer. It gave much more depth of character to Anton, but her performance did get rather over the top and a bit silly by the end, which is a shame. But up to that point, everything worked very well and was a great episode to watch overall. So there you have it. That was The Conscience of the King. If there's an episode of Star Trek you'd like me to cover, then pop it down in the comments below or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to be assimilated into my channel. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels, Jane Talks Real, Jane Talks Murder, and Jane Plays Games Badly. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and live long and prosper.